Thank you, Erica. Before we talk about the 2014 proposal, I just want to clarify something about the match for the Secured School Safety Grant Program. Normally with a grant program that requires a match, or any grant program, expenditures related to the grant have to occur after you have a fully executed agreement, and the match has to occur after you have a fully executed agreement as well. So if the Secured School Safety Grant Program was a traditional grant program, matching funds would begin when you would have a fully executed agreement. So for several of our schools who applied for 2014 funding, they would not have a fully executed grant agreement at this time, and they would need to wait to apply any costs of match or any costs of the grant until after they had a fully executed agreement. With this grant, the Secured School Safety Board allowed the matching portion to go back to July 1, 2013. So any expenses that occurred before July 1, 2013, before the law actually went into effect, are still ineligible to receive matching grant funds. And that is what we communicated when we had our last sessions about this grant. What we told you was, to the best of our knowledge at that point, that matching would have to begin when you had a fully executed agreement. Then the Secured School Safety Board allowed matching to go back to July 1, 2013. If you have a grant for the fiscal year 14 for the Secured School Safety Grant, again, it's a little bit different than other grants in that if you undertake grant activities prior to having a fully executed agreement, they won't be disallowed as they are with other grant programs. But you have to understand that the caveat with that is you run the risk of not having a fully executed email, or I'm looking at the chat box. You run the risk of not having a fully executed grant agreement, and then you'd be on the hook for those expenses. So if you are in a school and you have undertaken grant activities prior to having a fully executed agreement, you will not be denied funding for that purpose. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, you can either contact me directly, or when we get to the lunch break, we'll stay on the line for a few moments and let you ask questions specific to that before we break for lunch. But I know that there were some additional questions about the match that occurred, and we wanted to address that before we move on. So the Secured School Safety Grant 2015 proposal, you'll find that the content is not very different from the 2014 proposal because most of the elements in it are set by law. However, we did try to provide you the opportunity to have more narrative where you needed, and to address some things that the Secured School Safety Board had when they were reviewing them, and to make it easier for you for things that are just legal components to have some check boxes. So with this grant, the first portion looks very similar to last year. It's your basic applicant info and the primary point of contact for the grant. The school type is the same information that we had last year, but we had some schools last year that provided some additional information along with their ADM, which is what is required in the school type. That really helped inform the Secured School Safety Board about the type of school that was looking for the help, and really kind of helped set up their objectives. So you're going to identify if you are a single school corporation, a single charter school, or a coalition, and then you're going to identify your ADM. But you have an entire narrative box that, again, is 2,500 characters in length that you can use to provide additional information about your school if you wish. In the next section, that's just going to be your basic program summary. It's a good time to introduce your objectives if you want to, but it's going to give us an overview of your program. The needs assessment for schools this year has been split out into two components. So instead of just having 2,500 characters to address that, you now have 5,000. So you're going to first describe your needs assessment process, and then you're going to describe how the grant will help you address those needs. And that was something that the board was curious about in the 14 grant, so we've expanded that. You heard Erica talk about the challenges and risks section earlier. it's not a bad thing to acknowledge that you could have those challenges. So please heed our advice. Give us the information that you might have there to address any challenges that you might face. The school safety overview, these are basically checkboxes. These are legal things that school corporations and charter schools you are supposed to have, so you just check the boxes that apply to you. Some might not apply to charter schools, and so you don't have to check the boxes if it's an area that you don't have. What you do have to address is the professional development, and that is in the school safety overview section. That's something that the Secured School Safety Board had questions about last year. So, and it kind of relates back to that same thing. So if you implement this, how are you going to inform staff and teachers about the program that you're undertaking with this grant? So you have a box to describe your professional development activities. There is a box to check that you have a certified school safety specialist. The law enforcement is not changed from last year. It's the same question and the same type of questions. County School Safety Commission, there are a couple of changes in this section. One of them is for the legal elements. Again, more check boxes. In response to some of you who have participated in the County School Safety Commission for several years, then the grant became available, and so the grant was available to any entity that qualified, regardless of whether or not you participate in the County School Safety Commission. So now there is a box for you to indicate whether or not you participate in the County School Safety Commission. Also in the activities, there is another checkbox. Our Secured School Safety Board is curious about the role of the Commission in having better quality school safety plans. So in G, you will notice in this section, how has the Commission affected the applicant's school safety plans? That's a narrative box for you to describe how having the Commission has impacted the school safety plans for your school corporation. Sustainment, the same two very basic questions. Performance measures. This for you has been split out into two because we found that it was a little bit difficult for some of our schools last year. Your quarter planned activities are the same as they were before. It is a section that needs to be completed, and you just list the activities that you're going to undertake per quarter for this particular grant. You may have multiple activities per quarter, and you just keep clicking that green Add Activity box until you have explained your grant to your satisfaction. In B, though, the objectives, you have two narrative boxes to describe the anticipated impacts of the activities on your school and what measures will be used to determine the anticipated impacts. So separate from the activities, last year we just asked you to list your objectives in one of the activity sections. Now you have a spot for you to clearly set out your objectives for this grant program. The attachment section is the same as last year. You can attach additional information. Remember, though, that what the board will read, what they have to read, is what is in the proposal. So if you attach something, you might want to allude to it or let them know that it's there, but sometimes those don't get read as thoroughly as the information in the actual proposal. So keep that proposal focused, but use the attachment section for the other elements that you need to attach. The one thing that you must attach, as was the case last year, the public notice and the minutes for your most recent Secured School Safety Board meeting. So to review those proposal changes, the school type description may now include additional information. Your needs assessment is split into two parts. The matching fund section from the proposal, you might remember that from the fiscal year 2014 proposal. I really thought that was going to be a nice check and balance situation for the budget, but it turns out that was just a really bad idea and it was more confusing than it was helpful. So we've taken the matching fund section out of the proposal entirely. What we did, though, was we added to the budget. So now, before you submit your budget, you have to clearly show how much you are requesting in matching funds and how much you are supplying in, how much you're requesting in grant funds and how much you're supplying in matching funds. And until those two items balance, it won't let you submit the budget, which of course is tied to your proposal. I think you will find it to be a very handy feature to have, so you'll know that when you submit it that your your budget is in balance. If you have any questions while you're working with it, again, please contact me, or particularly Beth and Dan. They are standing by to answer questions about the proposal and make sure that you submit it. More yes or no responses for your legal elements. Again, it seemed to make sense that we were going to simplify that for you. Also, there's a lot of emphasis on those SMART objectives and the impact that this program will have on your school. Here is a view of page 1 of the proposal scoring for 2015. You can also get this proposal scoring guide online, but this is what the Secured School Safety Board will use when they evaluate your programs as well. If you look to the County School Safety Commission section, you'll notice that some of those legal elements are not valued as highly. They're only worth 2.5 points. For example, if you look at F, has the applicant completed a county school safety plan and filed it with the commission? Well, if you're a school corporation, you know you have to do that, so it's worth 2.5 points. That should be easy for everyone who's applying for this grant program. As we continue to look at the proposal, sustainment has a total value of 5. Your performance measures, though, look at your activities and your objectives and measures. That section is worth 25 points out of the 100 that are possible to achieve over the entire course of the grant. The budget could be some important 5 points, so make sure that the budget items are reasonable, necessary, and allowable, and that the justification in that budget, that narrative box, which again is 2,500 characters, will explain the necessity of each budget item. So that is, again, a quick look at the scoring for the Secured School Safety Board. If you do have questions, we are going to stay in the room and have the webinar active until, we'll say, 11:30 before we break for lunch. We'd be happy to address your questions. You have until that point. Then we will stop sharing the camera and turn off the microphone until we